Let's get into the news. The NFL league year is closing in fast, so a lot of stuff is happening. We are going to start off first in Seattle, and the Seahawks and Rashid Shaheed are said to not be close to an extension, and he's expected to test out free agency on Monday. So it'll be interesting to see where exactly he ends up. He was a hot trade target at the trade deadline, ended up signing with the Seahawks from the Saints, ended up winning the Super Bowl, and he was a big part of that offense. He had a couple kick return touchdowns. That opening touchdown against the 49ers was huge. He showed off his ability to be a crucial piece for them, a great deep threat for any team in the league. And honestly, he can be very useful for a lot of teams. Think about it. There's the Chiefs could be a potential target because Andy Reid has a obsession with fast receivers, and he definitely fits that bill. Other than that, other options could include the 49ers need a receiver after the whole Ayuk deal. I don't know what exactly they're planning to do with Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. The Chargers could also use a deep threat receiver like that. It would be very useful for them as well. So, and also the Broncos as well. There's a lot of options for him, a lot of teams that could go out and seek him in free agency. I think that he'll have a big market. So, things it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I think he's going to go to a contender of some sort, a team that thinks that he is one of their missing pieces that could really help boost their offense in a way that they didn't have before, that he could really stretch the field for them. So that is, it's honestly another move that I'm kind of surprised Seattle did. They also didn't tag Kenneth Walker, and now he's also a unrestricted free agent. So it's kind of weird. I don't know what exactly they're planning to do and whether there's some like whether what their plan is there because you're getting rid of two of your top like three weapons right now. You kept JSN, but you got rid of your star running back and now your number two receiver. It doesn't exactly make sense for the Seahawks at all. And then next piece of news, the Chiefs and the Rams worked out a deal that sent All Pro Trent McDuffie to the Rams for a package that included four picks, including one of the two Rams picks this season, the 29th overall pick. And McDuffie went on to sign, or he's going to sign a long term deal. So the picks include, like I said, the 29th overall pick in this year's draft, but also 2026 fifth and sixth round pick and a 2027 third round pick. So it's an interesting move to say the least. Clearly, it fulfills a need for the Rams because their cornerback room was their glaring hole on defense that they had to fill out. So that is clearly what they did here, and it makes a lot of sense. And then for the Chiefs, this move continues a trend of what they've been giving away their promising DBs after after they had good seasons. They did the same thing with L'Jarius Sneed, traded him to the Titans, even though that didn't exactly work out. So maybe the Chiefs know something that the Rams don't about McDuffie. Maybe there's some health issue or maybe he's on the decline, something that we don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what that looks like for the Rams because they're clearly adding pieces to their secondary. And we're just going to continue going off of that. And the Rams and safety Cam Curl have agreed to a 3-year, $36 million deal with a max value of $39 million. Essentially, it's $12 million a year with the potential. It's essentially $12 million per year, potential to be $13 million per year. And this just builds off of the Trent McDuffie deal and the Rams wanting to build out their secondary because it is the place that they struggled last year. Their offense was fine. Their front seven, that D line, is great. It's just their secondary that had a lot of issues, both in coverage, both man coverage and zone. So fixing up that side of the ball is their biggest need. And I think Sean McVay and their GM, they've understood that and they've made it their priority. Now it'll be interesting because they did get rid of one of their later of their 2 first round picks. So they still have that Falcons first round pick that they got from the James Pierce trade or draft pick trade that happened. So now it'll be interesting to see if a lot of people have been projecting them to take a corner with that pick. It'll be interesting to see if they still take a corner with that pick or now with the McDuffie trade and the extension of Cam Curl, if they still go with a DB or a safety, or if they potentially shift gears and go in another direction. One thing that's been interesting to me that I saw is that I believe it was Caleb Downs was flagged for a partially torn meniscus at the combine and supposedly a degenerative ACL, which kind of sounds like what happened to Will Johnson last year. Like a top DB had some lingering injury issue that caused him to fall. If Caleb Downs falls to that Rams pick, I believe it is in the mid-teens, and they pick up Caleb Downs, that would be amazing for them. But I don't know if Caleb Downs would fall that far. But that would be something to watch for, in my opinion. So I like this move. I like both of these moves, the McDuffie and the Cam Curl move. Both of them are smart moves for a Rams team that is honestly Super Bowl contender again this year. And then we're going to continue on with the Rams. The Rams have agreed to a 2-year contract worth $8 million with their tight end Tyler Higbee. This is just shoring up their roster. Unlike the defense and the secondary, which they addressed with McDuffie and Cam Curl, their offense doesn't really need any addressing. They just got to bring players back, and bringing back Tyler Higbee is going to do exactly that. They still got Puka. They still got Devontae. They still got Stafford. They still got Kyren Williams, and this just solidifies that. It gives Sean McVay all of his weapons back. So this is a nice solid move for them that is something that honestly was expected, but even if he didn't sign, it wasn't going to be a ground-breaking, ground-altering free agent. So pretty calm, pretty low-key move there. And then we go from one Super Bowl contender to the other. The Bills are trading for DJ Moore. I wrote about this yesterday. This move gives Josh Allen a true wide receiver one, something that he's been lacking since Stephon Diggs. It slots Khalil Shakir back into his wide receiver 2 role that is honestly more logical. He's not a wide receiver 1 despite that massive contract that he was given. And it just gives them another weapon that they've been lacking. DJ Moore, Over 4 out of his 8 seasons in the NFL, he's had a 1,100 yards receiving. So he is that number one receiver that the Bills have been lacking, and this is the first major move for them in the Joe Brady era after the firing of Sean McDermott, after those comments from Terry Pagula about their wide receiver room and Keon Coleman and the issues there. So it'll be nice to see Josh Allen back with another dominant receiver. And basically, I kind of said this is the first number one receiver since Stephon Diggs. So it'll be interesting to see if the Bills offense can get. I don't want to say if the Bills offense can get back to that level because Josh Allen is the real motor behind that. But he didn't really have a great performance in the divisional game against the Broncos. So if this move can help Josh Allen overcome the issues that he had in that divisional round, the turnovers, things like that, if bringing in DJ Moore could do that, that'll be great. And then for the Bears, this was something that had been speculated for a while. DJ Moore was falling a bit out of favor, out of the road. He wasn't the number one receiver anymore. And I had seen some stuff saying that they were trying to favor the youth, the younger players like Luther Burden, things like that, to really just rotate out the roster, start fresh, keep their young core with Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, build around that rather than keeping an older receiver like DJ Moore. So I think for both teams, this is a good deal, and I really like this for them. After that, we step away from the contenders and we get over to a bit more low-key stuff. The first thing is 8-time Pro Bowler Cam Jordan is going to be a free agent for the first time in his 15-year career. He had 10.5 sacks last year. He is open to leaving the Saints, so that is something that hasn't, like I said, he's never been a free agent, and honestly, something that I never would have thought would happen. He is, I believe, the Saints' all-time sack leader. He has 132 sacks in his Saints career. He is honestly one of my favorite players. He has an interesting personality. I'll just leave it at that. But he has seen a bit of a downtrend in recent years. Since 2022, in 2022 he had 8.5. Then it dropped to 2 in 2023. It dropped to and it was 4 in 2024. Last year he had a bit of a bounce back with 10.5, but he's been on a bit of a decline. So it makes sense, but it's also something that you don't really want to see as a Saints fan. However, there are options for him. There are teams that are going to be contacting him to see if they can work something out. I think that the Bengals are going to be one team going into the bargain bin for an older defensive end after they didn't franchise tag Trey Hendrickson. Just bring in some assets on the defense, see what they can do there. Have Cam Jordan potentially mentor and coach up some of those young players that they have, some of the young players that they're going to draft this year, because I believe they should take someone on the defensive line because their secondary showed promise. Their D-line was not great. So bringing Cam Jordan in for the Bengals wouldn't be a bad move there. And then there are probably some other teams that could use a veteran D-end to really boost up their team and figure out what they want to do. And then after Cam Jordan deal, we'll stick with the low key players. Well, not really low key, but a good move. The Chargers have agreed to terms with Commanders center Tyler Biadasz on a 3-year deal worth $30 million, so roughly $10 million per year, depending on how all the things work out. He was cut by the Commanders after being set to make $8.3 million. So for the Chargers, we'll start there. This is absolutely a need for them. Their offensive line was horrible. I've been talking about it all off season. I talked about it all season 2. It was something that terrified people the entire season. Rashad Slater was out. They had Joe Alt was back and forth with an injury. And then Bradley Bozeman, who was horrible. He retired, so this move it addresses that hole left there. And honestly, it's a good move. Biotish is not a bad center at all. I like this a lot for them. Like I've been saying, it addresses that O line hole and protects and hopefully gives Justin Herbert some more protection, something that he's been lacking. Honestly, his entire time in LA and with Mike McDaniels coming in as the OC, it'll be interesting to see if this upgrade in protection will lead to bigger splash plays and just better offense in general from the Chargers. Also, a lot of people project the Chargers to take some form of offensive lineman in the draft. I think that they'll probably take a lineman, probably take a guard at some point to fill out either guard slot with both of their guards potential or both of their guards leaving this season. So this is smart for them. And then for the Commanders, they cut Biotish. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm not too sure what the Commanders are trying to do. Why they're cutting Biotish is also a bit beyond me. Jaden Daniels was hurt last year, and it's clear that he needs protection. So cutting your starting center wasn't exactly the smartest thing in the world to do, but it does make some sense when you consider that he was going to make $8.3 million. And I don't know if the Commanders wanted to really afford that money for him when they could put it in other places and prioritize other needs. And then the last real extension that happened, again, another one of those smaller moves, is that the Texans and Danielle Hunter have agreed to a 1-year contract extension. And the money on this deal is insane. It's a $40 million contract extension with $30 million with a $30 million signing bonus. That's insane amount of money for Danielle Hunter, but it makes I don't want to say it makes sense because that's a lot of money, but you don't have Will Anderson up for a contract just yet. You don't have CJ Stroud up for a contract just yet, so spending them all that money just this year alone and just burn through that makes sense. However, I feel like you could have allocated some of that money to other needs, and there are a lot of other needs on the offense. Sure, you brought in David Montgomery as a running back, but I talked about it during the news episode. You have David Montgomery, and then no one else. You have Woody Marks and the ghost of Joe Mixon. I think Nick Chubb is a free agent, so you don't have him either. You could spend it at running back. The offensive line needed help. CJ Stroud was not very well protected. And then you're trading away your linemen too. You traded away Juice Scruggs in that Montgomery trade. You traded another lineman away to the Bears for, I believe, a 5th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. So you could have allocated some of that money to a lineman, and also on the receiver core, you could have. Receiver core isn't bad, but you potentially could have allocated that money to something in the receiver core as well. Just anyone on the offense, I think, would have been smart to allocate some of that money to, but also in general, just shoring up that defense wasn't a mistake because the defense was amazing. They were a monster unit. DeMeco Ryans, ever since he's been there, has had that defense firing on all cylinders, and just having that combo of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson on the edges is disgusting. So very nice move for them. I like it, even though the money is a bit much for me. And those are all the major moves. I'll get into a bit of a rapid fire the NFL of players that are going to be released at the start of the new league year. We'll start off with the Falcons. They're releasing wide receiver Darnell Mooney. Not much to say there. Then the Chiefs are releasing Jawan Taylor, which helps them save money. Saves them 20 million under the cap. I forgot to mention the cap went up. I believe it hit 30 or 300 million for the first time in NFL history. If I'm not mistaken, I think the number is 301.2 million is the salary cap this season. So Chiefs are under that. The Jawan Taylor move helps them get 20 million under there. And then the Patriots are releasing Stephon Diggs. I don't know if this is contractual, if this is to help them get under the cap, or if this is related to some of the charges that he is facing. So whatever the case is, the Pats have released Diggs. I don't know where exactly he'll end up, whether or not he'll face a suspension from the league, what'll happen with that court case as well. And then I mentioned the Chargers and their offensive guard spots are open because they have released Mekhi Becton, which saves them $9.7 million in cap space. They're also releasing tight end Will Dissly. So most of these moves are just clearing up cap space. And for the Chargers, Mekhi Becton was part of the problem in LA. He was one of those linemen that was bad. So getting rid of him was the smart thing to do. And then the Vikings, they're releasing Jonathan Allen. He could potentially find other suitors. There are teams that need veteran defensive players, kind of like Cam Jordan. And then the Steelers are releasing Jonnu Smith. I've seen some funny comments about this. I've seen people say Arthur Smith is checking if he has any years of eligibility left, which is kind of funny. Because Arthur Smith's obsession with Jonnu Smith is hilarious. So you never know there. I don't know where exactly Jonnu Smith will end up, but he's not a horrible player. He still has something left in the tank. And then after that, the Cowboys are restructuring Dak, CD, and Tyler Smith's contract. They're clearing up. I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say like 40 million in cap space. Some just absurd money that makes a lot of sense in general. The report is that before these moves, they were 55 million over the cap, but the restructuring cleared around 66 million in cap space. So that turnaround is just ridiculous. And honestly, I think I this is blasphemous, but I think I might buy into what Jerry said and that the Cowboys might actually be buyers in free agency for the first time in forever. Not to quote Frozen here, but for the first time in forever, Jerry Jones might actually be right about something. He might actually do something in free agency, which is a miracle. And then after that, the Bears are releasing Tremaine Edmonds. That clears up $15 million in cap space for them. Just clearing out some space. I think that they could potentially sign a free agent. They also got moved off of the DJ Moore deal with that trade. So there is that as well. And then finally, the last release that I have seen as of this recording is that the Raiders are releasing Geno Smith. And it makes sense. Geno Smith was absolutely horrible in a Raiders uniform, did not live up to the expectations that they had. They're also going to draft Fernando Mendoza, which he'll be their day one starter, so there's no need for Geno Smith unless they planned on having him as their backup or to potentially ease Fernando into the NFL and have Geno start a couple games and then after like a 3 interception game, put Fernando in and just go on from there. But no, they're just deciding they're going to throw Fernando into the fire off rip. And it'll be interesting to see if Geno lands with any other teams. I've seen some people joke around that he might go to the Vikings. And because the Vikings, they might just bring in someone to challenge JJ McCarthy to see if he can do anything, and if not, maybe if KOC can revive something in Geno for one last ride, or if not, just bring in someone to challenge McCarthy to see if he can step up his game at all. But that's it for the NFL. Now we got to get into the NBA. And this is something that I didn't think was ever going to happen. I didn't think a lot of people were saying it might. I didn't think it was going to happen this early. Jason Tatum will play the season and he'll make his debut today. I don't know when exactly this is going to be posted, but he might have already made his debut against the Mavericks. This is insane. This is less than 10 months after he got surgery for a torn Achilles, which is, I think, one of the fastest recovery times I've ever seen. Because he's actually returning to play. This is fastest recovery time, throwing out Aaron Rodgers and his dolphin noise recovery, whatever that he tried to do in an in-season Achilles recovery that never ended up working because he's a bit of a nut job. But Tatum coming back is honestly insane. I do feel like it's a bit rushed. You don't have to bring him back just yet. The Celtics are still the 2 seed in the East. And it's a surprise to everyone because no one thought that they would be this good. I thought that going into the season, the Celtics should just tank and just get a top pick because, as I've been talking about, ever since I started this show. The top picks are amazing. So I thought that the Celtics should just tank, that Brad Stevens would do the logical thing. But no, Brad Stevens decided to put together a super team, and Joe Mazzulla is coaching them to perfection. Their bench is amazing still. Jordan Walsh took a leap. Other bench players took leaps. Jaylen Brown is now in MVP discussions, even though he won't win MVP. I don't care what Boston Celtics fans say. I think that bringing him back this early it's a bit of a rush because you're the 2 seed. I get having him come back during March basketball when nothing really matters that much. You put him on a minutes restriction. Don't have him play like 40 minutes a game. Have him play maybe like 20. Just ease him back into things. Nothing too crazy. That way, when the playoffs do come around, he's ready. He's ready to ramp up into playoffs and ready to make an impact. And honestly, in a wide open Eastern Conference, maybe win the East again, face off against the Pistons for the Eastern Conference title. Who knows? But yeah, Jason Tatum coming back is just insane to me. It's something that I never thought was gonna happen this season. There was speculation. I'm like, there's no way. But hey, apparently anything is possible. To quote Jason Tatum. And anything is indeed possible when you get injured taking a nap. When you're Harrison Barnes. I'm just throwing this in for pure comedy here to end off the news segment. Harrison Barnes missed Tuesday night's game because he woke up from a pregame nap with a sore ankle. Yeah, you heard that right. He woke up with a sore ankle, and that caused him to miss a game. And this caused him to miss a game and break a streak of 364 consecutive games. The first game he missed since 2021. First game he's missed in 5 years. Because he took a nap. That's just insane. I get waking up and your back feels kind of wonky. Maybe you like roll it out. Maybe you stretch it out. Okay, yeah, that happens to everyone. Maybe you wake up, your calf is a bit sore because like you cramped up during the night or something. That also makes sense. But you play through that stuff. Like that's nothing crazy. To wake up with a sore ankle and miss the game is just wild to me. Like what are we talking about here? Like just how? It makes no sense. Harrison Barnes, hope you're feeling better, but don't take pregame naps for a while. Maybe you get that streak back on track. So yeah, just stay safe, dude. That's insane. But that is everything for the news segment. A lot of NFL news. A lot of stuff is happening now. I'll try to keep you guys as updated as possible with all of the free agency moves, all the cuts, all the trades, all the signings, everything that's happening there. And then I'll keep you updated on the other stuff that's happening as well. So until the news episode, that is all the news that I have for you. Now let's get into the main topic of the episode.